Yeah, I just let them keep rolling, because I have enough tape where if you run out, I can switch and then we'll just have a little bit on the next tape.
I do want to tell about, is it Disney World in California or Disneyland?
Land is California, and I think World is Florida.
Okay, Disneyland, that was a very exciting experience for us because there was no Florida, there was no Disney World in Florida. And at that time, we really didn't know much about it. In fact, I assumed it was a state park, and I was amazed. It was a costly park. And but we had a very good time. We were very impressed with how clean it was and how careful the guards were. For instance, we were on a ride and Chip turned the wrong direction. And 3 people were there to grab him when we got off. And that it was good, and the children liked it very much. And there was a very frightening ride that the older boys wanted to get on, but I did not want they could get on
What are
alone.
you talking about?
And when we were out in Disney World, and then
Oh, yeah.
ride Space Mountain or something.
Yeah.
As-
What year would the Disney World
Well,
trip
Chip
be?
was 5 years old at that time,
Okay.
and he's going to be 46 now. Anyway, I knew I had to get on because he couldn't handle all these children. So I think I sat up front with Chip, but I was afraid that my other boys would fall out. There was a child beside me, beside him, there were 2, I guess 2 each. And I screamed the whole time, "Are you still there? Are you still there?" It was a horrible experience, and I just could not believe that we did that. We tortured our children like that.
I had the same experience. I was very small and very skinny as a kid, and I got on that ride, and the seatbelt didn't really hold me in. And it went into one of the turns, and I think the seatbelt was up around my armpits. I thought I was a goner.
Yes. it
So
was
I'm with you. I didn't like Space
I
Mountain when
did,
I went
I
on.
just knew that my children was going to fly over the top.
Yeah.
And I think that might be the ride that when we got out, Chip started going in the wrong direction.
Mhm.
But that was fun there. And then we had dinner that night at the Pirates
The Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay.
Caribbean. And we could, in that we could see the boats going by while we
Some of them were scary. I mean, suddenly these pirates would be almost jumping on you.
Well, that's the thing too, is they're so realistic.
They are. They were the Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, when we went through the cave,
Mm-hmm.
it was very realistic.
Yeah.
And I think we sang "It's a Grand World After All" for
They
many
like
miles.
that. They like that.
We
Okay.
sang many miles after that, we sang that song.
So as you were driving, you would
Yes,
sing.
yes, yes.
Okay.
And on one of our travels, we were in a town where they had meat packing, and I forgot the name.
It was in
Morel.
Nebraska somewhere.
Morel, was it Morel?
Morel.
So we decided to take that tour. And it was very interesting. We saw the live cow and the dead
Well, I'll tell you
cow.
one thing, you see these cows, that are chewing into the last minute, and they go down this trough, and you get to the end of the trough, and somebody hits them with a sledgehammer on top of the head,
Yeah.
and they drop dead, and right away they hang them by the rear feet, cut their throat, and they pull them up in the air.
It was gruesome. And at the
And that's
end-
part of the tour?
Yes, I'm
that's
sure
part
they
of the tour,
changed that
yeah.
today.
Sure.
This was I'm sure today you wouldn't see that.
Yeah.
That
How did the kids handle that?
Well, we could have all the hot dogs we wanted after we finished it. No one wanted to eat, so that's how you sell
That's
it.
the catch right there, so no, nobody wants that after they.
It's interesting that you asked that question. The cattle were slaughtered and immediately raised about 5 floors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they started to dismantle the cattle.
Mm-hmm.
And everything was gravity flow.
Okay.
It went down various troughs. No machinery required, just these stainless steel
So-
slots.
Pulleys and tracks.
Yeah, and to the point that they saved everything.
Yeah.
Even the feet
Mm-hmm.
were used for something.
Sure. So I think that's important. I know that when you hear about Indian culture, they would hunt the deer, but then every part of it would be used for something, so nothing went to waste on it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the next day we stopped, or a few days later, at Kellogg's cereal.
Kellogg cereal.
Yes. Well, that was just so different. That was so clean and
Sure.
smelled
The
good.
job that that woman had though had to be the most, there's a woman that sits there and the conveyor goes down. And she has this little fork and she sort of makes sure that it's not being burned or anything like that.
She's looking for defects.
All day long.
Uh-huh.
That's probably changed now too.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
terrible. That was unbelievable. I said, how can anybody do that job?
It's just mind-numbingly
Right.
boring, yeah,
And that was a very happy tour.
sure.
And-
Yeah, that would be nice, because it would almost be like smelling like
Yes,
muffins
yes,
baked. or-
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then on one of our travels, we went to the Hershey Chocolate Factory, which is
Oh,
not too
nice.
far from here. But,
Sure,
that there, at that time, you could have all the
No, if
chocolate.
you want the smell of chocolate, I mean, they've got vats that are as big as this room
yeah.
with melted chocolate.
Are you guys chocolate fans? Do you love chocolate?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Oh, I could eat chocolate till I fell over.
No, we took advantage of all these various displays that they have across the
Mhm.
country. They have a lot of them.
Mhm.
They're free. Pineapple, where did we get the pineapple? One state we,
In Hawaii.
Huh?
That was
Hawaii,
when
yes,
we
that
were
was
in
Hawaii.
You weren't with the children.
Oh,
Um,
and I'll tell you, you've never tasted pineapple until you go to Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you go to their display place, it has just been picked. and
It's like right
ready
off
to
the
eat.
tree, yeah.
Tom was a premature baby.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were told that he could have problems, so we always treated him like he had problems. And so he was in the 2nd grade and Stephen was in the 3rd grade, they were short of class, so they made a combination of 2, 3. And so I called the principal, and I knew her, of course, and told her that I think Tom had learning problems, and I felt he would pay attention
So
to
that's
it.
what she wanted to move Tom into its 2nd, 3rd grade, and Stephen was in 3rd grade and Tom was in 2nd.
And anyway, I said that I felt that Tom would be listening and not concentrating. So that's when we discovered that he did not have a learning disability. She said, I hope all of your children have the same problem. And so until that time, we treated him like he had, because we wanted to be able to accept this and live with this
Mhm.
and have a normal life. So from the very beginning, we accepted that. And we were surprised to find out, because we heard that it was test scores, but we always felt it was compared to or something like that.
That's when parents assume something, and then even the teacher is surprised that when you tell them, well, you gotta be careful, he's got a disability.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, he does?
So what exactly, so he was born, how premature was he?
He was born the 9th of June and he was due in August.
Oh, wow, okay,
And at that time, no one knew anything about premature babies. They just kept them warm.
sure.
We had to get special nipples and clothing from Washington DC. We couldn't even buy it in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
But he grew very quickly.
And he was, until he was about 4 or 5 years old, when he started to talk, he would call his friends, he said, come and play in my boat. And he had these language problems.
But
They disappeared, huh?
He had speech therapy, and so did Chip.
Did Chip have that?
Yeah, and John should have had it. We all had the problems. Yeah.
Right.
Come and play in my boat? Oh, for
Fort.
Ford.
Yeah, Fort. Come and play in my boat.
They, when they were
And then
young,
the other kids would make fun of him.
Right. But that's the nice thing about having 2 older brothers.
right.
They can step in.
When the children were growing up, our backyard, they built forts, they built a fort, and
Mm-hmm.
they had all kinds of games there. And so they had friends. So they had a nice, normal growing up life.
Sure.
But they all did crazy things. Our oldest son and his friend decided to go into upholstery business. This is in high school. So one day we looked outside and there was this hideous old sofa
Sofa.
in our backyard. So I said, where did that come from? And John said, oh, Tom, a friend, and I are going to reupholster
And
that.
somebody put it out under junk.
And I said-
And they picked it up.
But take it to Tom's house, I don't want it here.
Sure.
And he said, we can't, Mrs. McGurney made us take it out of her yard. So that was the end of that. And,
Did they get it reupholstered?
no, of course not. And then every day that we lived in our house, my husband would walk around the yard before we'd leave for work. He'd go outside to leave, but he always walked around the yard in all of our houses. And that we had one time or the other. And so this one, it was a Sunday morning, he walked out and he came back and he said, someone was in our yard last night. And I said, how do you know? He says, they left some beer in the backyard. And he says, wonder who it was. It was. And I says, well, obviously it was one of your children. And he said, well, which one? And I said, well, John would be too scared to do that. He'd never even buy more beer than what he could bring. And I said, and Steve would have thrown it away. And I says, Chip was here in bed. He wasn't out, so it had to be Tom. He would be dumb enough to put it in the backyard. And you did accept that fact that it was Tom's beer. And so
How old were they at that point?
they were in high school,
Okay.
and John was still home, so he was in high school, so Tom was young,
Yeah.
so too young for that. But anyway,
I really thought that Tom, until he was in second or third grade, was going to be a retarded child.
Mm-hmm.
Until what was what was her name, the principal?
Pace.
Huh?
Pace.
Mrs. Pace. You know, we talked to her about her, well, he is retarded. She said, he's what? I wish all my kids were retarded.
Yeah. And this is based on essentially what the doctors were telling you when he was
Yes,
first born?
yes, we had great faith in our doctors.
What would it be about,
Well,
what was it about being a premature baby that would?
Well, because many of them were at that time. They did not have the care for them that they have now.
Mm-hmm.
And also, at that age, they're not completely fully developed. And also, Tom had to have it was a major operation for his size, but normally a normal sized baby would be. He had pyloric stenosis, and that's when the tube of the stomach.
At the end of the intestines, where it enters into the stomach,
Okay.
was restricted. And the food he could eat, but then he would have to get it out because it wouldn't go through his stomach.
So it would go into the stomach and it would not be able to travel
And
down
so,
into the
and
intestine?
so, and so the doctor said, it's a very simple operation and a very serious operation.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I understand. He said, well, there's only the incision. He was less than a year old, wasn't he?
I'm telling you, he was 6 weeks old.
6 weeks old, okay. He said, the incision is going to be very small,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to go in and get that intestine, which is onion skin thick, the
Mm-hmm.
muscle,
Sure.
and we have to nick it.
Yeah, the muscle.
It's just the muscle. He says, just to nick it, to make sure it doesn't go all the way through. It's just too strong,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to weaken it. He said, remember, it's onion skin thick. And so he had a major surgery, which was an inch long. They put a Band-Aid to cover it.
Mm-hmm.
Today, it goes across his,
It grew?
grew with him.
But
Yeah,
it went up. It was
Okay.
down
yeah,
here and it
it
went up.
went like
But
this.
he'd been a normal-sized baby, medication would have relaxed that muscle.
Oh, okay.
But they could not wait for him because it is.
So was he throwing up when he would eat? Because-
Well, he was, but he was so premature that in the books it tells you to be aware of that if it's projected.
Mm-hmm.
But he was so weak that it was not projected.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Boy, did he start growing after that operation.
Okay.
yeah.
So basically he was starting to get nourished.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and things changed after that, right. But I don't think he would like us telling that story.
No, it's the truth. It's sure, Nancy. It's just,
Right.
we were surprised at of course, any kind of an operation on an infant
Mm-hmm.
is serious.
True. And traumatic on you guys, because there's your new baby, and it's,
Right.
yeah.
And let's see, what are some other fun things for the kids? Oh, when we went to the Alamo, we read about these places that we knew we were going to visit,
Mm-hmm.
but of course not the ones we sort of ran into. And when we studied the Alamo, when we got there, it was so small.
Everybody was disappointed in the
And we
Alamo.
were so,
They expected to see this huge fortress.
right.
Uh-huh.
All it is a wall about the size of that wall, and it says the Alamo because it was a former church.
Okay.
And you go inside and it was as big as maybe this room.
Right.
Sure.
And you say, boy, I'll tell you one thing, history books have certainly magnified this story a great deal.
And all of our trips were in a non-air conditioned car. This was before air conditioning,
Sure.
really. I mean, there were a few out, but we didn't have one. And when we got to Texas, it was so hot.
Yeah.
And,
And you would do this in the summertime?
oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes. We'd leave in June and come back in July. Anyway, I read about where to eat and things like that. And so there was a cafeteria. And we went to eat, and it was just wonderful. We drank more than we ate because of being so warm. And when we walked out, Tony said, someone has stolen our trailer. And we believed him, and what could we do? And here we had gone to the campsite before and left the trailer
Okay.
and didn't remember until finally we said, oh, Tony, it's not. But another
You
time,
get used to
Were you-
you get used to pulling a trailer across country. And
Yeah.
you know, you're making these wide turns and there's no trailer back here.
Sure. So did you really think it had been stolen, or were you playing a joke on
no,
that?
he thought it. No, he wasn't playing.
Yeah.
And then in the tent trailer, whenever you packed in the morning, because we rarely stayed in a campsite 2 nights, because
Mhm.
we had other things we wanted to see. And once you packed or closed it, you forgot what was in there, because
Mhm.
it was a mess. And one day, I had forgotten something, and we had to stop in a town. I don't remember what it was, but I had to buy something. And we always used 2 parking places. It was a very small town, very pretty town. And so Tony did not have enough change for both parking meters. So we went to the store that we were going, a good little piece from the trailer. And we then got change, and he said to Johnny, go back and put money in and come back to the store. So we finished our shopping, and we realized we didn't have Johnny.
I was in North Dakota.
And where was it?
North Dakota.
North Dakota, okay. So we came, and what do you do? I mean, I don't even remember what the kid had on, because we got dressed.
It was one of these towns in North Dakota, all the houses were along the road. And there was a narrow sidewalk, and anybody could have reached out and grabbed the kid, nobody would ever
Of
find
course,
it.
no one was stealing kids, but the Lindbergh kids, they're the only ones who had been stolen,
Sure.
probably.
And that was a kidnapping, so.
Yes, and yes, for money. And so, anyway, we were all upset, and then finally Tony saw him way down the street. And Johnny couldn't find the store because they didn't have signs like today, big signs, it was just painted
Sure.
against the building.
Mm-hmm.
And he never thought of looking up there because he'd never seen one before. And so we saw him coming back, and he said when he reached the bridge, he knew he had missed something.
But by the way, by the time that he started to work, and that's when we stopped when he started to do summer, the kids started working in summer,
Mm-hmm.
we stopped our long vacations. Otherwise, as soon as school was out, we would take off for the west.
Okay.
Because we thought we could see the east anytime.
Sure.
We traveled everywhere. We camped under Yosemite Falls. We went across Golden Gate Bridge. We went to Washington State, Arizona. The Painted Desert. You know, they had seen the whole West.
That's amazing.
Camping, being
Yeah, they really saw it. They were in it.
they were in it. That's correct.
Yeah.
Then when we did the Northeast.
And we've got pictures of all that
Yeah.
Okay.
and sounds. You know, when we would cross.
You got the
We had recordings of the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but, yeah, probably. When we did the Northeast really, we did hotels.
Mhm.
By that time, we got rich.
I remember you said that you were done with the pop-up camper.
Yes.
And you
I-
wanted hotels now.
Yes, we did hotels.
They didn't like it.
They didn't like the hotels?
They didn't like the hotels, and they said, but you know, they've got this, they've got that. They don't have any park rangers.
we
Yeah.
See, we used to use the free national parks. We used to buy this $2 gold and something or other.
Mhm.
Park free in any national park in the United States.
Sure.
And usually at nighttime you could go to the campfire.
Mm-hmm.
Tony, do you remember how much it cost to go to California, go to Disney World? How much?
I think that
So,
with dinner, spending the whole day at Disney World, I think the total bill was like $26.
uh,
You couldn't get in
Gasoline in those
one
days,
person.
the gasoline in those days when we used to go across the first time around to California was 18 cents a gallon.
Wow.
Now, the other part about it is I was making $8,000 a year.
Sure,
So,
sure.
in an important job.
Yeah.
So, and that was a good pay.
Right.
But today, I think in many ways, it's more costly to raise a family today than when we were raising our family.
Mm-hmm.